everybody, welcome to Liana James Live for free, really. We're just doing a live show about all things hairdressing. For those that have not watched me before, I do a show that's all about all different things hairdressing. So in the past, I've spoken about why we use certain products. For example, we use Behave. There they are. And we also love the Lorenzo, and they're fantastic. We have done a show why we use them, what their best products are. I've done shows about all different colors and how they work. Tonight's show, however, is going to be purely about how you change your hair from going from light to dark. People think that it's a very simple process taking your hair from light to dark, but it's actually more intense than what most people understand. And I'm going to take you through that tonight. On Sunday, just for everyone's memory, I'm doing my Mythbusters show. That is important that you get in touch with us and tell us all about the different myths that you've heard from your ya, papu, nonna, nonno, grandpa, grandma, I should say, or any of your aunties or crazy psychic people that you've met. No offense to psychic people out there, it's just like having a bit of fun with that. But yeah, anything that you've heard about things that happen to hair, whether it's through growth, whether it's through how to color it or whatever, I don't care. Please send it through to us. But tonight is all about how to make your hair go from light and get it darker. Now, most people would think that what you do is, firstly, I'm going to say hello to three people. Hello, Kirsty. Hello, Anastasia. Hello, Anna Finlay. Hello, my beautiful darling wife. And Dimitri, my beautiful son, as well. And g'day, Anastasia, if I haven't mentioned you already. Ask questions. I want this to be interactive. But most people, you'll see, first things first, most people think it's really easy that you just sort of throw on a color on the hair. Say it's light, it's blonde. You just throw on some color and that's it, it's done. It's not that simple. So behind me, you'll see here, I've got a bit of an experiment happening to demonstrate exactly what happens in certain conditions of your hair. But before I get to that, because I want everyone to be excited about watching this, I'm going to explain a little bit first about what happens with lightning. Now, with changing a color to dark from light. So every color has an underlying pigment. Okay, and that's a very important thing to know. Now, I'm going to take you to our back room. Sorry about my face there. You'll see all these different things that we have on our back room. They're all little cheat sheets. Okay, now here is our fill guide. Okay, every single different level of hair, from 1 being the darkest to 9 being the lightest, has an underlying tone. Now, the underlying tone of a 1 is blue and violet. Okay, and then it goes violet, red, orange, yellow, and yellow. It's all these underlying tones. Now, you're going to say, well, why are you talking to me about underlying tones, Tony? It's gotten straight over my head. Because let's just say you're a level 9, where the underlying tone is a yellow, right? And you want to sit at a level 6, which your underlying tone is a red, right? If I just go with my regular color and slap on number 6, it doesn't have any of that underlying tone to actually attach to. And what tends to happen, especially with some of the target colors, is it becomes really wishy-washy. Have you ever seen a person walking down the street, you look at their hair and it's like almost murky, it's like muddy. It's almost like they've got a white piece of paper, smashed it into some mud, and it's come and dried up on that white piece of paper. That's because the underlying pigment hasn't been replenished into the hair. Now, there's different ways for us to do that. We can mix it into the bowl when we apply it. We can actually pre-apply it to the hair. So if I use this as an example, let's assume this person is blonde, obviously, right? But even on a color like this, okay? Let's assume this person here, who probably is sitting at the moment at about a 7, okay? Let's just assume that they wanted to take their hair to a level 3. This would also need the underlying pigment replenished into the hair. So we would have to pretty much either apply it to the hair first, dry it off, and then apply the target color that we're aiming for, or we can mix it in a bowl and actually apply it to the hair to make sure that the target color that the client wants actually is achieved. And it's very important because a lot of people can't appreciate all the work that hairdressers do. So that's why I want to go through all the details of why it's important that you come to a hairdresser, even from doing something very simple like making your hair darker. A lot of people come to us thinking, I can't make my hair go lighter professionally, but going darker, that's easy. No, there's a lot of dangers in it. Then there's also a second problem, and that is about making sure that we tone the hair to the right tone. So some people will look at a color in a color book, and I'll give you an example. If I can find where I've placed the color book, which I thought I placed over there. Anyway, I won't use the color book, don't need it. No, it's right here. Thought I placed it somewhere close by. Okay, so you're looking at the color book now, right? There it is, all the different colors. And the person comes through and says, I want to be that color there, right? That happens to be our warm range, and it's a level 3, okay? So we know now that we need to put the underlying pigment for a level 3 into the color mixture or apply it to the hair beforehand. But if we apply this straight as it is onto the hair, it won't necessarily come out to this exact color. It just doesn't work that way. We might actually have to counteract what's currently happening in your hair in order to make sure that this warm color actually comes true. Let's assume you had a lot of violet in your hair. We would need to have to bring the hair across from the violet section of the color chart more to the neutral part and then take it more across to where the warmth needs to be. Okay, it's very complicated. I'm not going to go into finer details of how that happens. I'm just trying to make people appreciate just how difficult it is for us to make sure that we get the right tone in your hair. Very, very important. Come and see us, talk to us about what is critical, what will help you. Again, I just want to remind people, whatever I'm rambling on about, ask questions, whether it's about this topic or any other topic that you'd like me to address. All right, so far we've talked about the underlying pigment, making sure that we choose what level we're going for, applying that underlying pigment before we actually achieve the target color, and then with our color mixture, making sure that we perfect match to bring it into line with what the client's seeing in the color book. That's the first few steps. But there's a few other things that are very important. The condition of the hair itself is very important. Especially with blondes, they tend to be in some of the worst conditions. And that's unfortunate. Usually, if we're looking at a head of hair, so we'll look at this again, okay, the ends tend to be the worst, and up here tends to be a little bit better. Okay, the worse the hair is generally comes down to the age of the hair and how much maintenance they've actually applied to it. The older the hair, even if you've done good service, still might have some issues. Okay, now what happens, especially when you're going from light to dark, is that if the ends of the hair, if the actual cuticle layer of the hair itself is not in a good condition, the color won't actually stay in the hair. I've spoken to you about this before. The cuticle layer of the hair opens and shuts. There's little flaps that sit on the outside, okay? They're a bit like snake scales, and they open and shut with shampoo conditioner, and then we try to keep them shut. Now, if they're damaged a bit or a bit hot, there's, let's just say they look like that perfect, then all of a sudden they're looking like this. What do you think is going to happen with the color? It's going to come through the hair. I'm going to give you an example of a hair in bad condition and a hair in good condition and a hair in really bad condition. So, for my experiment here, and I'm just going to stop this thing from rolling. They see me rolling. Okay, now I've got 3 cups here. Now the first cup I've got has no holes in the cup whatsoever. Okay, this is going to be a really good integral hair. No gaps. The cuticle layer is working perfect. Okay, then I have one here with a few holes. You'll see here in the bottom part. Okay. Then I've got another one that obviously demonstrates not so good, not perfect hair. Then we also have another cup here with a few extra holes in it. You'll see it's almost double the amount of holes compared to the other one. Okay? So you'll see what happens, and I've obviously got my beloved mixture of Greek Easter eggs here. I'm just making sure no one's written a question or something. Okay, so first cup. Pour it in, we get to about there, and look at that, the colour stays in the cup. Good quality hair, that's what tends to happen, okay? I've brought this little bucket here because obviously we're going to make a bit of mess by pouring this in. Now, before I use the one that is the worst of the worst, this is a hair that hasn't been looked after. The cuticle layers are vulnerable and open, okay? This is what happens to the actual hair itself, okay? You can see all, I don't know if you can see, but I'll hold it up here. Okay, you'll see colour going all over the shop, leaking out of this cup, okay? That's what happens when cuticles are not in good condition. All right, now I'm going to go to my last example. I'll pour that one out. Everyone hopefully gets that point. Okay, and this is hair that's really not good. Okay, really not good hair condition. I'm going to have to pour this in very quickly because it's going to pour out all over the shop. This is what's happening to your hair when your cuticles are in bad condition. All the colour is just coming out of the hair, as you can see right now. Okay, that is when you have cuticles that are in not a good condition whatsoever. And that's why it's important that you look after the cuticle layer of your hair. Now, I spoke last night about treatments and what can help. Okay, things from equilibrium that we have here. We also have our protein complex. We also have our oil balance. Oil balance critical for those ends and making sure that those cuticles can open and shut effectively. Why is it so Julius? I do not know what Julius means, but maybe you need to rectify that question and then I'll be able to answer it. So hopefully that gave you a good depiction of what happens. Now obviously the colour doesn't run out of the hair like I just showed you on that. It was to show you that when your hair is not in great condition, what tends to happen, how the water leaks out. There is a big difference between this cup here, okay, that is great integrity, none of the cuticles are affected, okay, and there is a difference between this cup here that has holes all over it and all this keeps leaking out of the hair shaft, and then eventually your hair doesn't look as good as what you'd like it to look, especially with the colour and the integrity of the colour. But it's important to know how can you help this? You know, what are the things that you can do? Well, we've got our Behave Rescue. We've got shampoos and conditioners that are going to be critical for the hair, making sure that that outside layer of the hair shaft is in good condition to be able to hold all the colour. You might also need, especially for those ends of the hair, you know how before I was explaining to you, the ends of the hair tend to be the ones in the worst condition. Even if you're being good to it, it's just because it's old. I mean, you know, things that open and shut repeatedly, eventually over time get a little bit weaker and weaker. So they're not going to be as great. You can use colour shampoos. We've got browns, intense browns. We've got cool naturals for those that are really liking the cool browns, for example. Anything that you need, we can supply it for you. And when I say supply it for you, you need to come and see us. When we're sitting down with you and going through all these very technical but important things about what you're doing with your transition in your hair, we can advise you on what's going to work best. Okay? Again, fire through any questions that you need to fire through to me. But most importantly, like I said from the start, if you have a desire to take your hair from lighter colour to a darker colour with a certain type of tone, it is important that you come and see your hairdresser and make sure that they give you the right advice, not only to get the colour right at that moment, but also to make sure that the maintenance and the outcome long term is maintained. Why can the transition, I can't, if you can, put that question again, blondes to browns through red. I don't understand the question. Are you trying to say like if you go from blondes to brown, it tends to have this red tone coming through? Now, the likelihood there is, there's two things. One, they haven't, throw red, yes, okay. Yes, it can throw red. One of the reasons it will throw red, okay, is most likely they haven't necessarily done the counteracting tones correctly. So, if you're putting a colour onto the blondes and you're trying to get it through, the likelihood is if you're trying to go darker, okay, you're going to have some orange and red underlying tones coming through. It's just important for the integrity of the color to stick. All right, but then you also need to make sure that you're actually counteracting that color that you're putting through there. Not only in the actual tint that you've chosen to put onto the hair, but also for those underlying tones. Sometimes they can be quite strong, okay? So it's all about the toning of the hair at that point. So when we're mixing it into a bowl, we not only would put, so if it's red, that becomes an issue, then we can put more green mixture. Now, it's not a perfect science, okay? Sometimes we start with 3 grams of green as a hypothetical, and then the person thinks, nah, it's still too warm. So the next time we'll add more green into that mixture, and more green, maybe even some blue violets sometimes as a combination, and then eventually we'll get it to that nice color that person is looking for. So it's all about, if it's throwing red tones, how can we counteract it? If the person's seeing red, I would still probably tone with green, for example, put green mixtures into the actual color itself. I might even actually change the tint color, okay? Because each tint color has a predominant tone and a secondary tone. And just changing the actual tint color itself without mixes, your greens, your blues, your blue violets, will actually help you with that trick. So it's a combination of all these different things. It's, like I said, it's not a perfect science. What I would say though is that the more experience you have with it, the better outcome you'll definitely achieve. And don't forget, if you get a brown on your hair as a color and you're not happy with it 100%, don't be shy to tell your hairdresser about that. Obviously, you can be nice about it. You don't have to be overly aggressive or anything like that. You can just tell us about it, because we can probably do a toner, not very damaging to the hair, takes about 20 minutes or so, and we can tone what tones you're not liking out of the hair. And that applies to a blonde tone, or that applies to a brown tone, okay? Either way, browns are harder, has to be said. They tend to be, but it can still be done in the salon. Now, you can wait till your next service and apply it then, or you can do it after. G'day, Hayley. If anyone needs anything done graphically, go see Code Red Creative. Hayley there, she is awesome. Want to give her a plug, because she always helps me out heaps and heaps and heaps. Hi, Victoria, as well. Again, ask questions. Tonight's episode is purely about going from light hair to dark hair. Even if you have a balayage, you're over it, you want to match it to your natural hair, that's what it's all about. How do we actually do that? It's not as simple as just throw on a color. The other thing that people have to remember is about natural. Natural compared to any of the colors that we have in our book is very hard to be perfect. I mean, you could have 10 brown hairs sitting like they're pretty much on the same level, standing right next to each other, and there'll be different tones in every one of those brown hairs. So it's really up to us to try to play around with some of the mixes to make sure that we get the brown perfect. Not too warm, not too cool, or whatever it is. That is a whole new level of weird and hard when you're trying to match your natural tones. So, thanks everyone for watching tonight. Now remember, reminder, myth busting hairdressing situations on Sunday. I've got a whole list of myths. Please direct message me if you have any more that you've heard from anyone or that you think of in the next few days. I'll be happy to answer all of those myths, and that should be a very fun episode. I also have a very funny song that I'm going to perform one day, and it's in response to the Singing Dentist. If no one's seen this, jump online, YouTube, look for Singing Dentist, Shape of You. He does a parody. I'm going to do a parody to his parody, and that should be a lot of fun and very embarrassing, no doubt. Anyway, have fun. Thank you all for the support, and if anything comes to your mind later on, direct message me. I'll be happy to answer it. Have a great one.